out, down the corridor, some 90 feet, with about 5 of us, as it was literally going on the air into the machine, unravelling the knots, unravelling the tape, somebody else sticking bits of white sticky on it so it wouldn't fall apart. And somehow or other, it went on the air, uninterrupted, didn't fall apart, and the honour of Radio Luxembourg and of the Duchess of Windsor was suitably saved. We had a lot of fun trying to pick out new record releases that would be or could become hits. And there's one in particular I remember, because it had an unusual history. At the time I'm talking about, American records dominated the charts, and for an English singer to get a hit, it usually meant that he or she had to find a hit American song, make a quick cover version and get it out on the market before the American one really got going. So when we found an American disc that hadn't happened in the States, but we thought was a natural hit by a total unknown, nobody ever heard of him before, it was his first disc, we thought we'd give it a try. And we made it Record of the Week. We played it every night of the week. And in no time at all, it was a #1 hit in Britain, and subsequently a #1 hit in the States. And I think that was the first time ever that an American disc reached #1 in Britain first, and #1 in the States later. The singer was Paul Anka, and the song was his own composition. We got some other odd jobs as well from the other services that operated there in German and Flemish and French, occasionally having to help out. In fact, I made my first ever television appearance on Luxembourg television when they wanted an interpreter. They presumed my French was good enough. And we had a couple of English beauty queens over. Their prize was a weekend in Luxembourg, and they were interviewed on the Luxembourg television by a man who spoke no English, so I had to stand at the back and be an interpreter. And I promise you, it was the most terrifying TV debut I think anybody ever had to make.
This is Radio Luxembourg. Reach for the wide, exciting world of Peter Stuyvesant. Rich, choice tobaccos in king size. So much more to enjoy. Peter Stuyvesant, smoothest by far.
People and places, there's so much more to enjoy. Come on along, come on along.
right up at Peter Stuyvesant. You'll be so glad you did. Late 50s, Britain had never had it so good. Radio Luxembourg was alive to the new mood. The 208 music studios overflowed with the new singers and bands that all Britain wanted to hear. Cliff Richard sang with a group known then as the Drifters.
Dawn will break and you wake and back I love that sunshine cake. Oh, me to take 400 boys to see. Family, boys for you and all for me. Can't you see how happy we could be? We will raise the family, boys for you and a girl for me. Can't you see how happy we could be? Whoa, how happy we could be. Whoa, how happy we could be.
Marty Wilde also had the 208 studios rocking.
Don't stand on around, she's so damn cool, and my baby, true little baby, my baby. Well, my baby, I know she loves me, my baby. Oh, yeah, I know she loves me, my baby. Well, my baby knows she loves me. She don't do nothing but kiss and hug. True little baby, my baby. Yeah! We don't stand no fooling, my baby. Oh, yeah, she don't stand no fooling, my baby. Well, my baby don't stand no fooling. When she's around, she's so damn cool, and my baby, true little baby, my baby. Yeah! My baby. Oh, yeah, I know she loves me, my baby. Well, my baby knows she loves me. She don't do nothing but kiss and hug me, my baby. With my baby. With my baby. Well, my baby.
Many artists made their debut on 208. The Burt Wheaton Show featured vocalist Jackie Trent. One of the most consistent hitmakers at that time was Billy Fury.
Yet hurts me so to know your heart's a treasure, and that my heart is forbidden to touch. So put your sweet lips close to my lips and tell me that they're gonna stay. Don't leave me halfway to paradise. So near, yet so far away. Whoa, 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 so near, yet so far away. So near, yet so far away.
Radio Luxembourg is now a household name, so 208 goes on the road to meet the audience.
It's quiz time, and here's the co-pair of our show, David Jacobs.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Quiz time comes to you tonight from the Ealing Town Hall, so now just sit back in your chairs and relax, because...
The stargazers are up the air. Crazy ribbon is the doorway. Y'all go my way, you go your way. Crazy ribbon, I'm not with.
Shows with a live audience proved very popular, and listeners were invited to participate in the continuing search for new talent. One of the most successful shows sounds familiar even today.
It's Huey Green, Opportunity Knocks.
The makers of Beecham Pills and Pensic tablets invite you to listen to the All Winners program of Opportunity Knocks, with Jack Dub and his quintet and the talents and voices you, the listeners, have discovered. And here now to introduce the All Winners is your master of opportunities, Huey Green.
Thank you, friends, and a very good evening to you all. Well, here we are with the grand finales, and once again, good and loud opportunity knocks. They say opportunity only knocks once. I don't believe it. I once bumped into Sabrina twice. Incidentally, friends, this season has been quite a season for show business in the Army. They've done a swap. TV got Field Marshal Montgomery, and the Army got Terry Dean. And when Monty Wow went for his medical, they weren't sure if he had a slipped disc. No, that's absolutely true, but they gave him a number 9, which soon put him back in the top 10. But now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pretty exciting occasion for everyone, because during this season there have been 4 semifinals when you, the listeners at home, have voted the winners to come forward to tonight's show. Now, your vote will help one of them towards the £150 star prize and may win you a £5 premium bond, about which I'll be telling you more just a little bit later on. So let's meet the first person who is going to contend tonight for the big prize of all, the £150. And let's meet that Opportunity Knocks winner now.
Listener requests had a big influence on programs. Big bands were as popular as ever. With so much happening in the 208 studios, the Civic Theatre Poplar became a regular venue for the outside broadcasts of shows by the big bands, like the Ted Heath Band. fan mail poured in, and the 208 DJs were stars in their own right.
For all that's worthwhile, your radio dial is on Radio Luxembourg.
And hello, my record fans, wherever you are. Once again, it's time for another roundup of all your favorite British and American recording artists, brought to you by the Decca Record Company for your special delight tonight. Oh, excuse me, madam.
Yes?
I work for Luxembourg, you see.
Oh, I am sorry. I'm afraid I can't help you.
No. I was hoping you'd play chaperone to this young fellow.
Oops, man, there's a moose loose about this house.
Well, that's about it from the jukebox for another 7 days. In the meantime, let's get together again tomorrow night. That's Monday at 10:30 for the Decca Record Hit Parade. So till then, this is Jack Jackson and... saying so long for now.
Well, what do you know? It's the Capital Show! The big top's a blaze of light, and this is Ray Orchard inviting toppers everywhere to gather round as for the next 30 minutes we call into the center ring these Capital Stars. Dean Martin, Tommy Sands, Ray Anthony, and Andy Griffith. Farron Young, Jackie Davis, Gene Reed, and the Andrews Sisters. Frank Sinatra, Richard Cannon, Gene Vincent, and the Rinky Dink. Can't wait for you to hear this, so we start with the never-before played cap waxing, the new one by the Kingston Trio.
Hello again, and a very warm welcome to the show. Michael Holliday sings.
Is that my heart or is it drums? I swear that I was hearing drums. And I went crazy as you my head is throbbing, my heart is booming, and all that I can hear are drums.
Michael Holliday and the sound of drums, and I imagine that this being Christmas Eve, there'll be lots of party sounds around as well. Among them, the little party about to be thrown by Mrs. Mills.
You are first driving like that. I know we're in a hurry and guys, dolls and whoops, but ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Percy and Jimmy Sopple, the Sopple twins, tonight to bring to your delight music and pictures, because we are going to show you the pictures of the artists as we play them tonight on Guys, Dolls and Groups. And for those of you radio set to receive pictures, we'll be in for a great time because we're going to have producer from here, Fiddler here. So let's go inside. And swats one out. It's a bit cold in here, personally. Let's crank the gear up. There. Let's get it going. There we are. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, Guys, Dolls and Groups brings to you
sound and vision of Mr. Crispian St. Peters.
Hey, come on, baby, follow me. I'm the Pied Piper. Follow me. I'm the Pied Piper. I'll show you where it's at. Can't you see? I'm the Pied Piper. Trust in me.
That's the gal who's certainly loaded with a touch of tonsil talent, all right. And on the Decca label, Lulu and the Lovers just then with their newest entitled Satisfied. And for sure, pop pickers, that's the record Night Tonight. So remember, it's tomorrow night at 9. All right? Right. And that means good night.
Multitudinous greetings to you, sons and daughters. My name is Noel Edmonds, which probably means nothing to you. It means everything to me, and I hope it means something to one or two other people. Well, I'd be extremely grateful if you'd stay with me for about the next 60 minutes. I don't profess to be about to blow your mind. In fact, I couldn't afford the gel ignite. Added to which, with my knowledge of basic electronics, I couldn't even sock it to you. But with a rare breed of insanity and the best around in the round, I hope to banish your worries and replenish your giggle glands. Giggle glands, that's a mouthful. If by the end of the show you're thinking in terms of prosecution, the name is Noel Edmonds, spelt D-O-N-M-O-S-S.
Just a few of the artists who were heard over the 208 airwaves. While rock and big bands are the order of the day, Radio Luxembourg did not forget the many requests for the sing-along.
Stand by for Tune a Minute, presented by Horace Batchelor, famous inventor of the amazing infradraw method.
Sing a song of sunbeams, let the notes fall where they may. Sing a song of sunbeams in the light fantastic way. Show the blues you're busy, that you just can't be annoyed. And they'll up and go because they know they're now and boy.
Greetings and good evening. If you like your music with a kick in it, then let's get together at this same time each week, when we'll be around to bring you a smile and a song in our new streamlined series, A Tune a Minute. To sing the songs we've asked along, June Marlowe.
Hello, everyone.
Kenny Bardell. Nice to be with you. Joan Small.
Good evening.
Ray Byrne. Up for the evening. And with his quartet, our pianist, arranger, conductor, and chief bottle washer, Ronnie Aldridge.
Thanks, Jeff, and good evening, everyone.
And with the introductions over, let's start the clock and swing out with A Tune a Minute.
There's a yellow rose in Texas that I am going to see. Nobody else could miss her, not half as much as me. She cried so when I left her, it like to broke my heart. And if I ever find her, we never more will part. She's the sweetest little rosebud at Texas Avenue. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, they sparkle like the dew. You may talk about your clementine, sing of rosary, but the yellow rose of Texas is the only one.
Tune a Minute remembered those good old songs. And how could we ever forget those immortal words?
Keynsham, spelt K-E-Y-N-S-H-A-M, Keynsham, Bristol.
You're listening to Radio Luxembourg.
Reach for the wide, exciting world of Peter Stuyvesant, the international passport to smoking pleasure. Rich choice tobaccos in king size. Peter Stuyvesant, smoothest by far. Light up a Peter Stuyvesant. You'll be so glad you did.
This is Radio Luxembourg. Now we return to This Is How It All Began, presented by Peter Stuyvesant. Do you remember this oldie from Dean Martin? It was a big hit in Europe in We're in the 60s. American domination of popular music is slowing. The Beatles are breaking big in the UK.
Reach for the wide, exciting world of Peter Stuyvesant. Rich, choice tobaccos in king size. Peter Stuyvesant, youngest of the world brands and smoothest by far.
People and places, there's so much more to enjoy. Come on along, Stuyvesant everywhere, happiness you can share.
Light up a Peter Stuyvesant. You'll be so glad you did.
In the mid-60s, 1964 to be exact, Radio Luxembourg found itself with commercial opposition from the new offshore pirate radio stations. Radio Caroline came first, but many others followed, including the most successful of them all, Radio London, where, incidentally, 208's general manager, Alan Keane, worked as program director. Tony Brandon worked on Luxembourg before he joined Radio London. Tony, tell us of some of your escapades, no doubt which are many, in the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg.
Well, I'll never forget it, Bob, because it was my first venture into radio. I mean, Luxembourg gave me my start. They have a lot to answer for that. The thing was that I'd just finished in the theatre, roughly, it was the back end of 1965, and I'd done a tour out in Aden, and it was about 90 degrees in the shade, and we were being shot at by various people, and I made the change from Aden to Luxembourg in the space of 3 days, which was traumatic, to say the least. And I got there, and it was snowing very heavily, and it was a great experience for me. It was a marvellous team of people there. Barry Aldis, DJ BA, he was our boss then. Then we had Stuart Grundy, who was the other DJ there, Tommy Vance, Colin Nichol, who has now moved on to British Forces Broadcasting, and myself. And there we were as a team. And of course, in those days, there weren't so many live programs. I mean, a lot of the stuff was freighted out.
That's rather a large team, actually, for a station which was using a lot of tape programs. What kind of hours were you working?
Well, we used to do shift.
For yourself, what were your programs then? Can you remember?
My first starring role was a thing called Disc Drive, which was a sponsored program, which was a real cough and a spit, you know. It was all over in about 14 minutes, 30 seconds. And then I used to have to sit there for another 2 hours and listen to Jimmy Young. And, no, it was great fun. We had a lot of good times. The engineers there were marvellous. I mean, of course, we had great problems, the language barrier, trying to explain what it was you wanted. And, dear Charlie, who has been there for a long time as an engineer, he apparently takes a turn for the worst on the 12th of December every year. I mean, this has been a thing that goes back to time immemorial. He, in fact, around about the 12th, 13th of December, annually, comes in with his briefcase. Whereas a lot of the lads, they were very keen, and they used to bring in technical handbooks on how to build transistorized, pop-up toasters and all these various other things. Charlie's briefcase used to be full of the local wine. You see, he used to come in there, and he used to say, the Luxembourg wine is the finest in the world. And he'd say, yes, Charlie, if you could get the record on, I'd be very, yes, the record will be on. I'd have another glass of Erbling, the local wine. And by the time Charlie had seen off about 3 bottles of this, he was in a little bit of a state, to say the least. I mean, the eyes were glazed, and the speech was slurred. I mean, I had difficulty understanding Charlie at the best of times, but after 3 bottles of wine, it was Anyway...
he's a good guy. Things haven't changed much.
No, guy, he's a lovely fella. But anyway, poor old Charlie, he'd all got too much for him, and we had a taped program, which was following me, working live, and with about 2 minutes to go, I popped to the powder room while the record was running, that mad dash along the corridor, which one very rarely ever made. But, I did that and came back into the studio to find Charlie prone on the floor, festooned in about 1,200 feet of tape, with no chance of the thing getting spooled on again. That was just one memory I had. It was great.
How long were you there? Started in 64?
No, I didn't join Luxembourg until March 66. I left there in April 67, and then joined Radio London.
So about the people that you worked with, tell us about some of those people that you were working with.
Well, I worked very closely with a lad who joined at the same time as me called Tommy Vance. And Tommy was my ideal disc jockey because I didn't know anything about it, and I still don't. But, in fact, he had come hot from American radio. He'd been working at a station in Los Angeles. Right. And it was, hi there, you there, and we're going to wheel and deal and swing and and it was all this thing, you see. And I used to stand there so fascinated with this guy. And he was brilliant. I mean, he'd had American experience. So he came over there, and it was very fast-moving, and he was incredible. And he gave me a lot of pointers, Tommy, and because I was trying to aspire to do what he did. And he said, you must never do that. Don't do that. It's not you. Slow down, relax, and have a giggle if you want, and nobody will mind. So I learned an awful lot from Tommy Vance. I have a lot to thank him for.
Don Wardell, was he there at that time?
Don was there, yes. He became chief announcer. Don?
Tony, if you could think of a record that would sort of epitomize your stay in Luxembourg or jerks your memory back to the good old days of living in the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, what would you choose?
Well, without doubt, Bob, I think the record that really caught my ear, and it did everybody else at that time because it was something so completely different, and I still think, after all these years, one of the most exciting pop singles ever made was that beautiful record by Ike and Tina Turner, River Deep, Mountain High.
In October 1967, Luxembourg changed its programming format. Up until this time, many of the shows had been pre-recorded in London. Now, 208 went live from the Grand Duchy.
Serving, solid-sounding, super-duper smile station. The station that spots a successful sound soonest. And this is your royal ruler. I wouldn't fool you. Nothing could be cooler.
This is Tony Prince. Hi, kids. Yeah, your royal ruler. You know, April the 1st means a very special day in my life. Not just April Fool's Day, although I know I'm the biggest fool or royal ruler in the world. but it means a 6-year association with the station that I love best. And it's been a very, very happy and I believe successful 6 years, not just for me, but for the radio station. There's a lot of things changed from that day when we said we're going live. If you listen to tapes of 6 years ago to what you listen to tonight on Radio Luxembourg, it probably sounds as antiquated to you as the sound you've already heard on this very special show, say 20 years ago. We're progressing all the time, and we have only one reason for progression, and that is to obtain your ears. Well, anyway, very briefly, I don't want to bore you with details. I know a lot of you out there will remember your Royal Ruler used to be on a TV show in Bristol, and then I went into a very exciting age, the age of pirate radio, when I joined Radio Caroline North with my colleague Bob Stewart, who is doing the commentary throughout the show tonight. That was a very exciting era. An age never to be forgotten. An age which pioneered what we on 208 are doing today. There's no doubt about that. Even the old Beeb says, wow, thank goodness for the pirate radio stations, because everything's brightened up on radio. Lots of things have opened up. But back to Luxembourg, because that's where we're at. We're into you, and to emphasize this, and what I'm trying to do as a disc jockey, and I know my colleagues are trying to do too, is to bring you exclusives, to bring you excitement, to pioneer things in music, to keep it not in a monotonous vein throughout the evenings. That's what we're here for. About 3 years ago, I was sitting down a club with a guy from a record company, and he said to me, "Where have you come from?" I said, "I've just come from Las Vegas." He said, "What were you doing there?" I said, I went out to interview Elvis Presley. Now, as you Elvis fans know, that was a big kick for your Royal Ruler, meeting Elvis and committing him to tape, which is a thing a radio station in Europe has never done before. But down the club that night, the guy said, "I'm going to Vegas next week." I said, "What for?" He said, "I'm going to try and arrange a tour for a group called the Osmonds." And suddenly I said, "You were joking. I've been getting mail, letters on this group." And you know, throughout my career, I've always looked at your mail and believed in your mail, because you are what decides what's going to happen. And I said to this guy, "I'm going to talk to Radio Luxembourg and see if they won't fly me out with you next week to meet the Osmonds." And thankfully, I have that kind of a company to work for who will take chances. So I went out to Vegas. I met the Osmonds, and then I saw them work. And that sold it to me. I knew they were going to be big. In fact, I've got a recording in my home now, and I'm sure many Osmond fans have kept tape recordings of that first interview, before their first tour, before they arrived at Heathrow Airport, where we met for 5 nights of 30-minute interviews with each brother. I finally met Alan Osmond and said to him at the end of his interview, "Alan, when you and the boys arrive at Heathrow Airport in a couple of days from now, I'm sure that we in Britain are going to substitute the word Beatlemania for Osmond-mania." And he was aghast. Didn't believe it. Neither did many people. But I knew it was going to happen because of your letters to me. Keep them coming in. Of late, your Royal Ruler's been doing his nut over Alvin Stardust. Alvin Stardust is going to become another Gary Glitter. It's already happening. Again, it was your letters in your mail which pointed to me that Alvin was going to be a super Stardust. Super Stardust. The ball is always in your court. The Royal Ball is always on Radio Luxembourg. You own it. You've got any complaints, you drop us a line. You've got any nice comments to make, do that to us too. But remember, Radio Luxembourg is here for you.
Channel 618 and 33 FM, 49.26 meters around the world on shortwave and channel to Western Europe. This is Radio Luxembourg with Martin and Finlay, and it's another Sunday. It's another world of music here on Radio Luxembourg, 7:45 to 3 a.m. every night. Good evening. This is Kid Jensen on the air for the next 55 minutes playing music, collectively Dimensions. At the forefront of great British rock and roll. You're listening to the Mark Wesley Show on Radio Luxembourg.
Have I got a record for you? Hot chocolate, rumours. Don't you believe a word of it, except the rumour that made Luxembourg a legend. Super Sound 27 in the world-acclaimed chart of fame, Hot Chocolate.
Well, that brings the story of 208 bang up to date. The current team of Tony Prince, Kid Jensen, Mark Wesley, Dave Christian, and myself, Bob Stewart, will be here for a long time yet, playing you the sounds you want to hear. But before we do anything else, a word from 208's General Manager, Alan Keane.
Well, that's it. We hope you've enjoyed this program, which has covered a period of about 41 years in our history. I believe that no one could ever challenge our claim that 208 has contributed a great deal to Britain's music industry and to our advertising industry. Our audience throughout this period, apart from those war years, has extended not only throughout Great Britain and Ireland, but also over Europe, from Denmark, Sweden, Norway and Finland, and then down to Belgium and Holland and across to Germany and France, and beyond. We regularly hear from young listeners in Czechoslovakia, in Poland, in Eastern Germany and Yugoslavia. And so it only remains for me to say on your behalf, thank you to the many radio personalities that made this program possible.
Alan Keane, General Manager, Radio Luxembourg. This is How It All Began has traced the story of Radio Luxembourg's English service from 1935 to 1974. 208 would like to thank all the personalities who have taken part in the show. Bob Danvers Walker, Charles Maxwell, Teddy Johnson, Pete Murray, Jeffrey Everett, Keith Fordyce, and Tony Brandon. A brochure on the program is available to listeners. Send a 5-penny stamp